Okay, good evening. TGIF. Now it's TGIF. At the end of the F. Anyhow. Welcome back, folks. Got a little bit of painting to attempt to do. And got this kind of project that's just kind of taken on a life of its own. The T-34s that I'm doing. I finished assembling and gluing them this morning before I went to work. And these here. And I'm probably going to stop that at this moment, okay, and work on these ones that I've already primed. I've already dry brushed green on them and given them an Agrax Earthshade wash. That's what we're going to focus is on these four. I'm going to put this stuff. I still have to decide. I got a problem with the hatches. I would like to put at least one of these three tanks, maybe two of them, with a tank commander poking out. And I've got to go look and see what I have. I don't want to order stuff. I want to see what I have. So I don't want to go down that rabbit hole just yet. So let me go ahead and take one of these boxes here. This should be an empty box, yep. And I'm sure we're going to mess with this later this weekend, almost certainly. And here's the extra parts. Hatches and so forth. I don't know that I have them in white metal, but I may be able to use some plastic guys. I know for a fact I've got some plastic soldier guys that I may be able to use. We'll just see. We'll see what we have. And because that is the last of the Chelyabinsk turrets, this type of turrets. I have one done, and those three will make four of them. The rest of them are all this type right here. We've got two commanders here. These come with the commanders. I'd like to not use the same ones because it is the same figure over and over and over again. So, anyhow, this is what we're going for. This is the look that we want to give these. Obviously, they're going to have different markings on them. And anyhow, away we go. Right, so first things first. And we got some things. If it wasn't nighttime, I would do some things differently. I would spray this. I want to give this a coat of the Vallejo matte finish. I am with the airbrush that I got yesterday. My goal is to not do rattle cans, no more spray cans. They are just. It's mainly a clogging issue. They just start to sputter and stuff. They're just really low quality now. They used to be a pretty good quality spray cans that I would use, and they discontinued those. And the smell is really bad, but you know I can get over that. And so we just decided that's what we're going to go with. Obviously, we're going to do some other things with it. We didn't just buy an airbrush; it's a flat coat things and prime things. But I do not see myself using the airbrush to turn things into this because I really don't want to change my painting style. And you guys can't really see what this is. The lighting is all too powerful. I don't really want to change how my painting style is. So we're still going to be using the brush and stuff for weathering and stuff like that. Now when we get into buildings, that's a different story. But anyhow, so what do we do now? Well, we get rid of these filings, that's for sure. I didn't know there were any back here hiding. That is a piece that may be needed. Okay, and let's go ahead and, oh look, we already have some colors here. But remember what we learned last time. We don't want to keep the dry brush color on the same pad that I have other things because I want to move it out of the way so I don't accidentally carry it with me and make a mess. Let's start with the most basic one that has the least amount of things on it. And all right, let's get that Russian green out here. And this is the same color that was dry brushed on it originally. So we put a mixing bowl in there. Now, I'm definitely looking forward to experimenting this weekend. I know. My mirror image. There we go. To experiment with the airbrush, and for that, I'm probably going to mess with this little guy, which is actually 1/87th scale. I pulled that off of here. I had no intention to do that. Let me grab this before it hits the floor. I gotta repair it. But I primed that. It's a little anti-aircraft half-track. It's 1/87th scale. I've had it a very long time. And I'm going to experiment basically priming it with TANKOGRAD from AK. And then doing the Agrax Earth Shade and everything. I'm not going to change how I do things. Because, you know, I'm really happy with how it is. And I don't want to be unhappy with what I have and have to start over or want to redo stuff. So this is what we're going to try. We're going to do TANKOGRAD and maybe do some camouflage on it with the other colors. As AK colors is supposed to be straight out of the bottle for airbrushing. So that's what the plan is at some point tomorrow. Of course, we can't film that, but I'll show you what it looks like if it comes to pass. So this is just the standard Russian green here. And which is the same color that's already on here. It has that wash on top of it. Let's go grab a brush that looks like it's been used for some green stuff, just out of principle. I actually don't want to airbrush anything until I get my area in the garage set up. Which all I got to do is just clear off a table. While I airbrushed the other stuff, I was literally hunched over. I wasn't really comfortable. So we're just going to go over this in the same color. And I have a few more of these to do, of this exact model, and of other models from Skytrex I also have to do. So of these type similar hulls, I probably have 15 more to do. And I'm not looking forward to cutting those machine guns down. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of non-fun work, so I just don't have an X-Acto knife not an X-Acto knife. I don't have like a Dremel. I have a Dremel-like tool, but it is way too fast. Then it becomes like dangerous, like, you know, you're gonna hurt yourself. So I'd rather not hurt myself. I need all my fingers, especially the ones on the right hand. So we're starting this pretty quick. Got back from work, went to the gym, and said, let's do some painting. So painting we will do. And just like the other day, if you find something you want to talk about, feel free to bring it up. We can have a go at it. This is the turret for it. Let's go ahead and just do the complete model. Yeah, I don't know how durable that matte Vallejo is going to be, but I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm actually not sure why I even have it. I may have tried to brush something with it, but I'm very happy with the Tester's dull coat lacquer. It's very, very dull. And one thing I also would like to do this weekend is work on the gun crew for the 2 martyrs. But I don't want to start now. I'm tired. I'm kind of giving crewmen a break. I've painted way too many figures the last 18 years, and it's not that I don't want to paint figures. I want to knock out some vehicles. So we'll try to knock them out this weekend. And they have like Panzer crew style uniforms, but they're for the self-propelled crew wore uniforms like that were in field gray. So they look just like the Panzer uniforms, double-breasted, folded over. These are the ones from Plastic Soldier Company. I know you can't see them really close there, but they should work just fine. The posing on them's okay. Patriot. Hey, long week here. Can't sit at desk and paint one figure. Yeah. I don't know, but did this week feel long? Sometimes it does. I was ready for the weekend. I'm ready to experiment with that airbrush. But it's not going to take over brush painting for me. I'm not even going to use it for weathering. I'm not going to spray the end and get dusty. Nah. I like how these are coming out. But you know, we could do all kinds of other stuff. Like I said, I'm gonna take it one step at a time. I've been watching videos, and we'll get there. Just gotta experiment with it. It's ridiculous that it took this long to find an airbrush that is easy to take apart and not, punishing to take apart. Yeah, we'll go ahead and paint these green as well. You're a contractor all week looking at military vehicle developing a technical manual. That doesn't sound fun at all. I hope you enjoyed it. Manual sounds like something nobody's going to read. Don't bend the needles. Yeah. I've used one 20 years ago. I'm sorry, 30 years ago. I didn't have really any problems with it. But you watch all these videos and people are just dishonest or something. They'll say, oh no, these things work fine. No, they don't. Not if you got to fight with it every time. It'd be like you go out and you buy those. Oh, I bought some brushes, and you end up getting the Testers set. Remember the Testers set you'd have as a kid, and have those nylon brushes, and they all came out like at this. They weren't even straight. You can't work with that. They don't have to be expensive brushes, but they got to be better than that. That's just useless. But yet they still have them in the store. I don't know what suckers are buying them. I'm sure I'll figure out what to do. Okay. Half of them down. Well, and that's just the first color. SECM Light. When you pull the needle, be careful reinstalling needles. Every airbrush that I had prior to this one, you had to, it was a nightmare trying to go through that button. And this one has an easy one to go through there. So I'm sure at some point I'll probably bend something I shouldn't, and I'll buy the replacement for it, you know, I'll figure it out. People that are a lot less patient than I am can do it. I'm sure I can do it. You know, I primed with it the other day, and it was slow. It was slow priming it because I was being careful, you know, so that I wouldn't have to come in here and hand paint it. Now this was a mistake. I think I'm going to leave it alone. I had no intention of doing this. These two barrels, these fuel barrels, are like right next to each other. There's a little bit of a gap here. I wanted there to be a little bit of a gap. I'm going to leave it be, figuring, you know, some stupid Russian welder wasn't paying attention and put him too close. So that was an intentional screw up. It was an unintentional screw up that we're just going to let go. And if it bugs me too much, then I can fix it. But I think we'll be okay. Alberto Martin Bartolome. Welcome back. Model Master's been okay for me. Throw it away when the channel cannot be cleaned anymore. $25. Model Master. Well, Model Master is who I used to use for all my spray paints, and you know, they started off being $3, then they went to $4, then $5, then it got to be like $8 for a little spray can, and I was fine with that because it was good quality, and I don't use that much. And then Rust-Oleum bought testers and discontinued all that stuff, or at least that's what I was told. It's not available in stores anymore. And you know, I don't jump ship. I got stuff that works well. There's no reason for me to find something better. It's people shutting down or the product not being made. They do it to themselves. So I was perfectly happy with Model Master. But then now you got to go to Hobby Lobby or, God forbid, Walmart, and buy, you know, Krylon or something like that, and the nozzles clog. Not necessarily the clear, but the black definitely. I can't go through a whole can of it. You could hold it upside down and clear it when you're done. It doesn't matter. It's just made, you know, mass-produced garbage. You know, it would sputter on you. I got spots on that Panzer III that have like a little bubble effect. It doesn't really bother me, but it could have happened somewhere it was really bad, you know. So I'm like, well, now's the time to jump ship from that. Oh, Master Series airbrush. Yeah, that's what I got. It was horrible. But I read an article about them that they spit so many of them out that they don't care, half of them don't work. So maybe I just got a dud. So now the nice thing is it came with a compressor, and you know, by the time you figure out what the compressor cost with or without the airbrush, you end up paying like $15 for the airbrush. So not a big deal. I'm not going to return it to Amazon because I needed the hose, because the Iwata airbrush did not come with a hose. I would have been pissed if I'd gotten home. All right, I'm ready to use it. It doesn't have a hose. Man, and I go back to the store and get a hose. So the hose worked perfectly from the Masters airbrush. But I'm using whatever their compressor in, and everybody swears the compressor is just fine with a tank. You know, but that airbrush is that's how everything should work. I even dropped it to 15 pounds, and I had no problem. Ran everything through it, cleaned up real easy. Piece of cake. But the Masters one, I had one that was similar to the Masters. It was one that was carried by The first one I had was carried by Harbor Freight. And it was a nightmare to put it back together, put the needle back in. I mean, I'm patient, and I couldn't do it anymore. I literally would have to seek therapy if I had to do that. That somebody made something that complicated. And I'm sure they're probably made in the same factory as the Masters ones. So I'm like, okay, I need something that is less problem causing. You know, because what happens is if you have, you know, it's like firearms. If you have a firearm, I'll use a firearm example. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about here, Patriot. You know what a Ruger Mark I is? My dad had one from a long time ago. And I never went shooting with my dad or anything. I wish I had, but I never did. But when he passed away, we were going through what he had. And he had a Ruger Mark I. And that thing is a nightmare to take apart and put back together. I mean, you literally have to use like a mallet. And it's like, it punishes you to clean it to the point where you don't want to clean it, which is, you know, the wrong attitude to have. You should have something that's easy to take apart, you know, like the Berettas, piece of cake, right? But that Ruger Mark I is just like painful. It's like, what did I do wrong to deserve this? So... But I wanted to make sure, okay, can I return this in the store? Yes. I said, well, you have 30 days to do it. Oh, I'll return it tomorrow. I'll return it tomorrow if it doesn't work. And I'm not going to return it. It'll work great. It worked like it should have, you know. Get the new dual fan compressor. It cools down the way motor. I think that's what I have. It's too late. I'm stuck with what I have now. Advice is too late. I believe it's what it is. And it doesn't run all the time, especially if I drop it to like 15 or 20, which I don't need to push that much force out. My father-in-law brought it back from Germany. It's now my wife's. You own a Bursa Thunder Pro 45. Father-in-law brought it back. Oh, I meant Ruger Mark I. It's a 22 caliber target pistol. It was the first one they did, and I don't know when it was designed, probably the 50s. And it was based on the Japanese Nambu pistol. It's similar to that. It kind of looks like a Luger, but doesn't. It is a nightmare. It is a nightmare to take apart. So, my brother got that one. I'm like, I don't want that. I don't want to deal with that shit. But when I was looking for, firearms, I'm like, an important part is something that's easy to take apart and put together, you know, along with other things. Okay, that one's done. Did I do this one? This is the last one? This is the last. Okay. And then we'll do all these, and we get to paint a couple commies sticking out of the hatches. If something's difficult to clean, a pain in the ass, you'll find yourself not cleaning it, and that's bad. If it's something that needs to be cleaned. We're going to have to paint the bottom part of that somehow. Thank you. Somehow that didn't get paint on it. It's no big deal. I end up doing so many coats on these things that are going over it. kind of hard to not catch any of that stuff. And like I said, if you miss something painting, odds are it's somewhere that you're not going to be touching with your finger. So I've missed things before after I've sealed it. Not very often. I just paint over it, don't seal that little part. Because it's going to be something that you can't get to your finger. You can't wear it out because it's in a place that, hell, it can't even be seen, much less grabbed. So it's not a biggie. You don't know it, but it's funny how the tone of the voice sounds when talking from one language to another. It is, I'm sure. I guarantee my tone is significantly different. And it's weird if you haven't heard yourself speak, which I've heard enough of my videos. I know what I sound like, but you don't sound the same in your own head, you know. Both me and wife were in Army. I'll take pepperoni on my pizza. Alberto's from Spain, so. Is there Spanish pizza? If there was Spanish pizza, I guarantee it's got ham on it. That's the meat of choice for me, ham. I eat a salad every day and it has ham. Okay. We are done with that phase. So let's go ahead and put a new, this one we will use a wet palette for. Thought his name was Italiano. Yeah, we're all cousins. We're all cousins. My dad said I had a great grandfather who was in the Spanish Army, I don't know, 1880s or something like that. That's all I know. I don't know anything else, so. Nobody's been in the military since then. Like I said, that's one of the reasons I don't really care for the American. There's many reasons, but one of the reasons I don't care about the American Civil War is my people weren't over here yet. We're still over there eating empanadas and taking siestas. Échale serrano ham. There you go. There was a Spanish restaurant on a cruise ship we went on, and they had tapas, and we tried this cheese that we really, really liked, and I forgot what the hell it was called. It starts with an I, and it was excellent. Of course, you know, cheese should be excellent, or you're doing something wrong. I'll tell you right what it is. Spanish cheese, and it's from what's the name of that place where all the terrorists are from? Baco. Idiazabal. Yeah, and it was excellent. The terrorist. Isn't that funny? All the firearm manufacturers that were in Spain, or at least the ones that made it over here to the States, which I think there was 3. There was Estrella, there was, oh shit, I didn't know I was going to quiz myself. Anyways, there was 3 of them. Llama, or as people call them here in the United States, llama. No, it's not the animal, it's flame. They're all from the Basque region. Hopefully got all those terrorist bastards taken care of. I hate terrorists. Going after random people. Go after people that did you wrong, not just random people. That's rude. Okay. Same thing, you know, all of my paint is Spanish. Well, not exactly. This stuff comes from Barcelona, and then the other one, AK comes from Where does it come from? Is it Navarra? Exactly, it comes from Navarra. Yeah. Okay. We got Verde Russo, Russian green, and then we're going to grab some sand, dark sand, and we're going to mix us some colors and use that to do some highlighting. Or as I like to call it, forced shadows. I want to put shadows where I want them. Okay? And what did I do with that brush that I had here? Your name in Italian would not be Alberto, it would be Albertini. Sounds like Little Albert, Albertini. Let's put that on hold for a little while and use this one. It's also been used for the green. Yeah, now regular brushes, I don't mind buying cheap brushes because they're gonna get damaged. They're gonna get damaged no matter what. No matter what I do, they're gonna get damaged. And let's get some of this. One of these drops over here for good measure. Start with a running gear. If you mess something up, you're just going to cover it up in dust anyways. That's okay. That's probably all right. Where's the test one that we were using? Here we go. Let's run some of that off. All right. Yeah, I don't want to use the airbrush for weathering vehicles because one of the things that I like that I do is, well, that's why I do it because I like how I do it. Why would I do something I don't like? Is it needs to, the details have to be visible at a distance, but I also don't want it to look like crap if you look at it close up. Because I've seen some painters that use a lot of contrast, but you can't take pictures of their stuff close up because it'll look really, really crude looking, at least for my taste. So I kind of had to try to find like the balance between the two things. So, oh, this is the one that's missing the fender. So I kind of accomplished that by priming it in black first and dry brushing the green. So there's some places that have some black. It's either that or you have to wash the whole thing with a pin wash and then cover over it. So I'm like, the washing part is what takes a long time to dry. So I don't really want another step that takes a lot longer. I'm like, that's a way to cut a corner. I don't cut a lot of corners in the things that I do, and I allowed myself the opportunity to cut one. So. But the stuff that I find that's weathered with airbrushing, it looks too real. And it's not to say that it looks bad. It just blends all together. It doesn't pop at like 3 feet away. So I prefer not necessarily something that looks 100% realistic. I want something that looks almost like if you were, if you picked up a graphic novel, a nice graphic novel of World War II, what the stuff would look like. And that's kind of the look I'm going for. So yes, there's weathering, but it's not, overall, so heavy that all the details get lost because it looks realistic. There's some painters out there that their vehicles look better than a real vehicle, but it's just not my thing, especially because it takes forever to do. Also, and I got a lot of vehicles to do. I don't really want to spend 30 hours on each one, or we're not going to get very far. So while I do appreciate chipping and stuff like that, it's not for me, you know. Risas. Te estás matando de la risa. You're killing yourself from laughter. Okay. Now, this is what I like to do. Let me step away from this so I can see it. Yep. Yep, that's good. And then we'll mix a lighter color here, and then we'll hit the edges and really make all the stuff pop. Yeah, there's some great painters out there on YouTube and such, but you could take things too far for me if I've got this many to do, and I want to get more vehicles. I have a ton and I want to get more, but I got to work through my pile. Making it more difficult for myself to do each one isn't going to do that. Isn't going to be easier to get through the pile. So. Well, it's got to be the look that you want. You're the creator, and you're the one that's going to get frustrated if things don't turn out how you want them to. It's got to be the style you want. There's some painters. There's one of them in particular. It's prolific. They've been around for a while, and they do a lot of painting, and I just don't care for their style because their faces look like somebody said on the miniatures page, looks like a meat cutting chart. And it made me laugh because it kind of looked like that. But hey, that's the look that they want to go with. They do a good job with it. I just think that it's just too much of a big difference between each, muscle group or whatever. But that's how they want to paint. Hey, as long as they're happy with it. Just don't make me paint that way. That's not what I like. But they are a good painter. I just don't really care for that. What is it, that Foundry 3-color system? If you're going to do that in 28, it's just not enough differentiation between it. I think it's just too much of a drastic one between each color for a figure that big. When I was doing my 20s, I think I was doing like 6 to 8 shades for each one, probably the other extreme. And now that I'm doing the DBA armies, I've probably dialed that number back to maybe 4 or 5. But if I'm doing faces, I got a lot of little differentiations in between there. Because it's got to look like a person, At the Battle of Kursk, those tanks were literally plowed on the German Tigers. Hey, Nordic, how you doing? Tell me you're feeling better today. Tell me you're feeling better. Escala 1/72nd. Actually, these are technically 176th. I got so many of these because there was an estate sale at a convention that I went to, and I've been to 3 estate sales for, real stuff, 1-to-1 scale stuff, and I swore I'd never go to another one because they're really sad. Because for starters, you realize how much stuff people collect that nobody ends up wanting when they pass on. You'll go to somebody's house and, you don't know who this person is, but, they collected salt shakers. And you'd be like, okay, so he's got like 30. Oh, no, he's got hundreds of salt shakers, just extreme stuff like that. And it's just kind of sad to see, and it happens to everybody. Everybody's, you've got these people that have just gone hog wild doing whatever it is that they're into. But an estate sale for somebody who's a war gamer, well, I don't even know the people. I'd rather them be around than buy their stuff. But the people that were their family members that were selling it, they really didn't have a use for it. And I didn't need this many of them, but I'm like, well, this is the scale that I do, and it's not a scale that's in vogue anymore. Everybody either does 28s or 15s. Even micro armor is not that much in vogue anymore, from what I've seen at shows and stuff. And but that worked just fine for me because that's what I'm into, and that's why I ended up with so many vehicles. But they're not the best quality vehicles. I mean, these are, well, they're not as old as I am, but they're probably from the early 80s. There we go. Let's add a little bit more color there. But they work just fine. They work just fine enough for me. And I'm not that particular mixing 72nd and 76th. It's okay, Feeling better, but your damn ear is still congested and the doctor's office has ignored me for 3 days. When I go to the specialist Tuesday, I'll have to check them out. I'm not happy with the doctor's office, and I have half of mine to slam them with a suit over the medical neglect. Go to a different doctor. Remember, you're the customer. Forgot which rules we're going to use for these. You've never heard of them. It's called The Face of Battle. They came out in about 2003, and now they're out of print again. Or at least the World War II part. The core rules, the World War II core rules are out of print. I don't know why, but they're super anal retentive rules. That's what I like. That's how I like my World War II. Hey, Joe. Welcome back. Soviet tactics consist of large masses of tanks, regardless of their quality or age. Everything they can shoot forward, it's worth. Yeah. Well, they started getting a little bit more finesse-like towards the end of the war, but you got to have some of those people survive, There's only so many. The Germans can only crank out so many folks to stop them, and I'm almost done with my curse book. I'm gonna go on to something else. It's gonna be reading Eastern Front stuff as I go, and I really need to read it with a notepad because I'll come across something really interesting. It's like, oh, I want to know more about that. Just today, okay. So Kursk. Everybody knows about Kursk, the northern end and the southern end. The northern end stalled out first, and then the Russians ended up launching a counteroffensive on the north end of where the North forces were. So I'm reading this account. It says that the Soviets opened up with tanks, and they were KV-2s. So KV-2s in mid-43 are like definitely not in vogue. And, so that right there is an interesting scenario. You would never think of, using, because you've all walked by some kind of a game where they're just, and it'll happen with naval games too. It'll be like, okay, well, we have a naval battle. Well, what is it? Oh, well, we have a German battleship, an Italian one, and a Japanese one against, I walk away from stuff like that and go like, yeah, I'm not playing that crap. That's just for an amateur, right? Anybody knows better than that. I'd walk by a 1943 scenario with KV-2s and be like, well, that's stupid. They didn't have them back then, or they weren't any in operational order. But no, according to this, they had them. Now, a ton of them got knocked out. I think they knocked out 60 of them, is what it said in the same day. It was against the 5th Panzer Division on the, around July 12th of the 13th, that they launched their counteroffensive. So, I need to read that stuff with like a little notepad, like, okay, read more about this, or, look into this a little bit more. Face a battle, writing it so when I forget, I will look back here. Looking at Battlefront World War II from Fire and Fury. Yeah, everybody's into something different, Depends on what you want to simulate. When you play World War II, what is it that you want to see? I want individual figures based, and I don't want grenades that are thrown 4 inches away. I think it's silly. And it's silly because if you have a building, that's just not what I want to simulate. If you have a building that's this big, but your grenade range is only 2 inches away, then this building that looks like a hut is really, 300 feet long or 200 feet long. I don't want to simulate that. I want actual scale. So, yes, I'm simulating something extremely granular, but that's what I want. I've played other games that are not so granular, and that just doesn't scratch my World War II itch. If I'm going to play World War II, I want to play a skirmish game where each guy is an individual person, and you roll to see where each grenade lands. Now that means you cannot do a huge battle. Yes, I'm painting a ton of vehicles, and I will not use them all in one game. That's fine. I'm painting this many because I have them, honestly, and I enjoy painting them. But, one particular scenario that I'm probably going to do as an intro scenario involves 2 T-34s. The Russians have 2 T-34s and 2 tank riding squads that ride on them. That's all they have. And they have to get through the other side of the board. And there's like a German anti-tank gun and like a half squad defending. That's it. That's the whole scenario. If you want something bigger than that, it's not. Pick another set of rules. A lot of these skirmish sets are like just so people can move individual things. But if you're commanding like a company, you're making decisions that the company commander wouldn't be making, So. Beatty looking at another set of rules for World War II other than command decision. Yeah. There's a set of rules that's the same scale. There's the same scale as command decision, so 1 to 5. I think it's called Clash of Armor, and it's made by Clash of Arms Games. And it's been out a while. I picked it up. I never played it, but I did look at the rules. And one of the interesting things it has, because command decision is a great game, but I just don't feel like you have meaningful decisions to make from turn to turn, which kind of means it's kind of on autopilot. Like DBA. DBA is excellent from the standpoint of, do you have meaningful decisions to make every turn? Oh yes, every turn you have how you're going to manage the pips. Okay, that's huge. Well, Clash of Armor, what it does is you have the same scale of game, the command decision. So you've got let's just use a German tank battalion. It has about 10 vehicles. Okay, you've got like a command tank, and maybe there might be a second guy in the command. You might have if you're talking like a Barbarossa, if you have a Barbarossa German tank battalion, okay, early mid 41, you're talking like a Panzer III command and like a Panzer II also in the recon, and then you'll have maybe 3 companies of 3 vehicles, each with 3 Panzer IIIs, and then the last company will have 3 Panzer IVs, something like that. Each one of those units, other than having the tank in it, or the tanks, because it really represents 5 vehicles, has an activation number. I forget what they call it, but let's say it's like an 8, okay, because they're pretty good quality. So it's like an 8. So when it's your turn, you get, and I'm paraphrasing here, and I've never played it, but here's kind of the gist of what makes this game kind of cool. And I don't know how the infantry plays, so the infantry may be just garbage, but the tank part looks really interesting. So you have an activation number that basically works around your training and morale qualities. So the better your training is, the better your morale, the better those numbers are going to be. So when it's your turn, it's kind of like what's that game that's all the rage that I actually like a lot? I know, how the hell are you going to guess? Lion Rampant. You have an activation number for that company, and you roll a d10 to try to activate it. And if you do, you get to do something with it. Okay? And I think you go until you fail an activation thing. Or maybe you do one unit, the enemy does one unit, and you just go back and forth. But regardless, you can try, so maybe you get these Panzer IVs or whatever, and you fire HE at some infantry or something like that. So you get to go again. You can activate that unit again in the same turn, but it's like +3 or something. I don't know exactly what it is, but there's a chance you can keep using a unit, but they're going to end up getting fatigued. So, it's an interesting opportunity to kind of like press your luck. And maybe you have an elite unit, like maybe you've got some Tiger 1s that are attached, and you can have them do more of the dirty work, but they're going to end up getting tired, And it's just kind of an interesting mechanic that I really haven't looked into it, but I just kind of I read the rules over 20 years ago. And I thought that was a nice alternative too, because I do like the 1 to 5 scale game, but I'm not interested in spending this much detail and we'll call it love, painting all this stuff up for a game that's as basic as Command Decision. It just doesn't scratch my itch. If I'm gonna label these guys differently and make them all differently, then they need to have a little bit more. The rules need to have a little bit more panache, a little more detail. So, Spearhead by Battle Group. Yeah, Spearhead's really similar to Command Decision. Looking for a set of rules allowing me to refight the entire Stalingrad campaign. Get it on computer. Operation Barbarossa, numerous French tanks were used and confiscated. In addition, Italians, Hungarians, who manufactured their own models. That's the War Master style. What, reactivate stuff? These rules came out in the 90s. And I thought they were pretty cool, but if I did a 1 to 5 scale game, I would do it in Pico armor, the 3mm stuff, and put them on counters, and all 5 tanks would be on that counter. So it would look like a 1 to 1 scale game, but I'm only moving them, and I don't know if that makes any sense, but you have more of a look to it. But I've been there, done that. I watched somebody recently do a review or a playthrough of the Rommel rules. That's way too basic for me. I would never play like a Phil Barker World War II thing. Like, it's a medium tank. Which one? Oh, they're all the same. Oh, hell no. No, don't even go there. Don't even go there with me. Like I said, I plan on playing this solo. I'm pretty convinced that there may be everybody in my game group may not like this because it's too granular. That's fine. They don't have to play it. This is the excitement of the granularity of this game is what's going to keep me painting stuff. I don't want to play video games. I want to play World War II miniatures. You're very opposed to video games. Yeah, I don't want to play a tabletop game where a lot of your stuff ends up working on logistics. I think computers does stuff that does that a lot better. Battlefront, you roll for maneuver. Say -3 for being suppressed. You get a 1 or below. Your squad runs for cover instead of activating. That's interesting. Now, what relation is that Battlefront to the Flames of War stuff? Because I remember before Flames of War came out, there was a company called... Honestly, I'm kind of confused. There used to be a game, I think, that was called like Battlefront. I played it one time. And then maybe there's miniatures that are Battlefront that got taken up by Flames of War. I don't know. They should just use more different type naming systems than that. But I played one of those games. It didn't last very long. That may be the one you're talking about. I don't remember anything about it, to be honest with you. Okay, let's step away from these guys and see if these look somewhat similar. Of course, what I really want to do is do the hatches. Not the hatches, the stuff that's the decals on them. I think they look pretty good to me. All right, so let's do some forcing of the shadows. I'm going to put this away. We're going to use, make sure we don't mess with the one that's holy. One of these is like, performs miracles. I think it's this one. Regardless, we're not going to use either one of those two. We're going to use something like this. That was before Battlefront Company's Fire and Fury. Okay. I never cared for Fire and Fury, but then I don't care for American Civil War, so. That doesn't mean it don't make a World War II game, you know. But I got a friend of mine who swears by Battleground. The game Battleground. I actually had a copy of game Battleground. I bought it probably in the mid-90s when it came out. It ended up becoming out of print. I love the hit locations for the vehicles. They literally had a silhouette of the vehicle, numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, depending on what aspect it was getting at. And it was like, if you hit there, this is the damage that it would do. If it was non-penetrating, it would do this. If it was penetrating, it would do this. Pretty cool. It was visual. You could see what was going on. However, you got guys, their grenade range is 4 inches. So you know it's severely constrained. You know, and that's fine. If your grenade fires 3 inches, but you can only be this close to somebody, then in reality, your guys are about this far apart and you can't ever get closer to that than real life. See what I mean? You only throw a grenade this far, then whatever distance this is, this now becomes like this far in actual scale of the miniatures. And I just think it's just weird. It's not for me. It's not for me. I sold it and I ended up selling. I went back and looked on eBay. They ended up selling for like $2 or something like that. Nobody bid on it. And that's fine, good riddance. But I did come across some of their scenarios, which I didn't have at the time. And one of them in particular is called Panthers East, right? And it's all scenarios that have to do with Panthers. So, you know, you've got stuff that involves them. All that involves Panthers on the Eastern Front. Okay, so you've got scenarios that involve everything from Kursk to the Cherkasy Pocket, battles in Hungary, etc. Destruction of Army Group Center, Silo Heights, all that stuff, right? Well, when I start losing confidence in people is when you figure, oh, well, I don't know where they got these scenarios from, but these are a pretty good idea. And then you start noticing something that they should have caught that's kind of obvious. And I mentioned this the other night. It might have been last night, the night before. They got a scenario that involves, it's a Prokhorovka scenario. It involves, I think it was Liebstandarte at Prokhorovka or something like that. And the force is like 5 Tigers, 5 Panthers, 5 Mark IVs. And Liebstandarte did not have any Panthers. The only people that had Panthers at Kursk, supposedly, was Grossdeutschland, had some integral Panthers in its force, and the 2 independent Panther battalions that ended up forming that Panther brigade. That's it. There was other units that had Tigers that weren't necessarily Tiger units. All the SS units had a Tiger company. The Grossdeutschland had a Tiger company. And there was some Tiger companies that were spread among the Panzer divisions, just the regular standard Panzer divisions to give them some strength. You know, like in the South, the Panzer divisions, the 6th, the 7th, and the 19th, that were between the Second SS Panzer Corps and the Army Detachment Kempf. Those had the 503rd Tiger Battalion had been split up between them. I didn't know that. I found this out recently. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. But yeah, no Panthers with the SS units at Kursk. And I'm like, if you miss something that obvious, you're just creating scenarios out of nowhere. And I mean, I could do that too. So. But, I look at playing war games as learning about history. So if you're creating faulty scenarios, then I'm learning bad history. So, a stupid question. Are you talking about Flames of War or the war game? No, Flames of War is by Battlefront Company. Fire and Fury has World War II game called Battlefront World War II. That's really confusing. Yes, I'm following. But it is confusing. And I care about what armor units were where because I'm an X-135th scale modeler. So I'd be like, okay, I want to build a model of that tank, but I want it at such and such a place with unit markings of something. I've still got that. I'm wired for that. I'll never build a 135th scale model again, but I'm still wired for that kind of stuff, You can't get that out of your system. So I don't do chipping because I just don't think at the scale and the look that I want doesn't really go with it. Campaña de Kursk. Now, I have a couple of those. I have a couple of skirmish campaigns. One of them is Grossdeutschland at Kursk, and the other one is Red Guards at Kursk. And the scenario with the two T-34s with the tank riders is from the Red Guards at Kursk one. So it's kind of a bunch of counterattack scenarios. But I like to paint vehicles that most people don't get excited about. Like, it's easy to get excited about the German stuff because it's cool. It's cool looking. They were the masters of propaganda and unit markings and they have all kinds of camouflage that's different. They were all over the place, and that's why they're that popular. I started painting Shermans because Shermans, people don't get excited about Shermans, but they're important too. Everything's important. T-34s, they made a gazillion of them, but you got to make them look a little different and independent of each other and get excited about them. So it's all important, I've always painted stuff for both sides. It's not like, wow, I only want to do, that's why the type of gaming like Warhammer or Flames of War, where people say, oh, I only play SS Panzer Grenadiers, I don't play anything else. It's just like, it doesn't resonate with me. Well, why would you only do one side? They need to fight somebody. But that has to do more with the person than necessarily the rule set. That person's the same way no matter what it is that they do, Do I have a tank commander in that one turret? I have a tank commander in 2 turrets. I do. And I'm going to make their uniforms different. I'm going to make one of them, it looks like they got the jumpsuit on. So I'm going to make one of them with a dark gray jumpsuit and one with a blue one, just to mix it up a little bit. They used both, so. I said, just give them some variety. I mean, yeah, the basic green is going to be the same, but they're going to have scratches and stuff in different places. The weathering won't be exactly the same on each of them. I found a picture from there's a place. So if you're looking for ideas how to paint things, there's a great resource. Because when I was doing 15 millimeter figures, I'd take ideas from people that do things in 28s and other scales. You know, it's just ideas. You know, and there's a great resource called. There's actually three great resources for the stuff that I'm doing. Or there's three great resources that I've used that are actual websites. One of them is down right now. It's a website by a guy named Henk of Holland, and it has all like reviews of listings of who makes plastic, but it's all 1/72nd scale stuff. So if you're not into 1/72nd scale stuff, it's not for you. But there's reviews of all the kits and what they look like out of the box, what the decals look. Not everyone, but most of them there is. There's a way to find out what comes in each kit if you look hard enough on the internet. Somebody's been nice enough to share that information with the rest of the world, so you don't end up getting something that it wasn't what you thought it was going to be. Another one is a website called On the Way, and I think it's also only Henk of Holland. I think is 72nd and 76. On the Way is only 1/72nd, and it's similar. They have the same type of thing where they've got different kits made by whatever, and you can look in them, whatever. But there's another website that encompasses everything called ScaleMates. And ScaleMates is almost like a database where you can put down, you know, what kits you have, what you're going to have, and you can search by manufacturer, what they make, you know, like who makes Panzer 4Gs. You can look them up. I only want ones in 1/35th scale. Okay, cool. And it'll show you most of them actually you could download because people have uploaded the actual instructions that the kit comes with. So you can find out whether it has separate link track, what kind of track does it have, what decals does it have, what do the instructions look like. It's really, really cool. So that is a great place that I go and look at, say, I did that with the T70s. I'm like, all right, my T70s didn't come with any decals. So let's look at 1/35th scale models for T70s and see what decals are included, and I'll just hand paint them. And that's what I did. And between that and Google image searches and other stuff, there's all kinds of information out there. And it doesn't matter that it's in a different scale because I'm going to hand paint it anyways. So, forgot to answer your question the other night about why I'm considering 10 mil for World War II. The answer to price is cheaper, easier to store stuff. More importantly, my gaming space is very limited, so smaller troops work best for me. I don't think 10 mil is a bad scale. It's just kind of, is everything available in it? Like I thought about doing, you know, like if I did like Renaissance or something in 10 millimeter, they don't make everything. You know, I'll be like, oh, they don't make that. Oh, they don't make that. I don't make that, you know. Maybe they make everything in 10 mil for, is that equivalent to like 1/200? Is 10 mil like 1/200 scale? All right, now I'm going to step away from this and see if that's enough popping on the hull, and it probably isn't. So we're going to tinker with it a little bit more. We'll go to the turret, and then we're done with this one for the time being. It's still pretty early. But when I was doing 20 millimeter stuff before, when I was doing 1/35th scale stuff before, the internet didn't exist. You didn't have that resource that you take for granted now. Let's lighten this up a little bit more. Not everything about the internet is good, but that just happens to be one that is. I always know 10 mil is pretty complete World War II. I don't know what scale it is. It's somewhere between 6 and 15. Well, a 15 is 1/100, right? And 6 is about 1/300. Yeah, it's about 1/200. Something like that. Tony in English sounds like a Sari or university professor. I don't know what a Sari is. A university professor. No, I don't think I'd do well at university. I know I wouldn't do well teaching at a university. I hated writing papers in school. I didn't mind learning stuff. It wasn't about learning. Because just like some people have I was going to say painter's block. Why don't I just call it what it is? Writer's block. It's just hard to get going. Yeah, the 10 millimeter infantry's got to be better. The 6 millimeter infantry just, it doesn't make playing infantry worth a damn. I had them. It's really, that's why I didn't like the micro armor kind of stuff. Is it just, oh, I got infantry? They don't look exciting. That's why I like this scale, because people are important. You know, the figures you see are important. They have value. Oh, it's so-and-so. He died. Oh, no. You know, it's personal. I'm way too excited to be a history professor. Those people are cold. And they're talking about the same thing to people that a lot of them just don't even want to learn, you know? They didn't want to be there. All right, let's put some scratches in here. Like this has been clambered on. You know, some scratches in the same color. There's some discolorations and stuff. Because this will actually show through when we do the weathering. And it just makes this one that much different. Yeah, we can grab. The other thing I've noticed is just grab this stuff with your hands. I'm not taking any paint off. Now, it was handy using the airbrush to go ahead and actually get a glove, having a rubber glove. Because then you don't get all the spray paint because you're basically holding it with one, so. Holding it one-handed. Now, one thing I love to do is any hard angles, I like to shade them so that they stand out. So at a distance, you can see the angle changes of the armor plate. It just makes it stand out that much more. Something that if you were airbrushing, it would actually blend everything kind of together. I mean, there's ways to not necessarily do it that way, but I'm just speaking generally. Let's go up a little bit higher than that. looks good to me in this light. Okay, this is the other one that doesn't have a tank commander. I could just stop and do one all the way through, but we're on a roll. Half water, half coffee's got me going. Not going to have a morning painting session tomorrow, just so you know. I got to take the wife's car in for a PM, preventative maintenance. If shipping isn't so high, isn't that the problem with everything? Nobody wants to pay for shipping. They should just do shipping free and just hide it in the price. I wanted to get some 3D printed stuff, but you know, the tanks are pretty reasonable, like $12, $15 each. But the shipping's like 20 bucks. You want to buy one tank, 20 bucks. You want to buy 10, 20 bucks. It's all like the same thing. Like, yeah, I don't need that stuff that bad right now. What happened to these guys down here? I know I asked this question before. I don't remember what you guys told me. What do you guys think I should do? I'll put them away. That's what Joseph B., welcome. I've got this T35 and two T28s, and they're 1/87th scale, so they're small. Should I paint them and use them? Or should I just say, I don't use them at all? I found the spare parts I got to put on them. I got these. These are a company called Primo. Made in Russia. Yeah. Right there. I probably got these about 1991, 92. Should I paint these guys up? I'm thinking I should paint them up. Yeah, they're going to be out of scale, but whatever. You know, they're playing pieces. Go look at a copy of Command Decision. Frank Chadwick's tanks that he played with. He's got 1/87 scale stuff in there mixed with other things. It didn't seem to bother him. I mean, I'm going to paint them cool. They're going to look good. They're just going to be a little under scale. What do you think? Give me some food for thought. Use them. No, size-wise. They're significantly smaller. They're 1/87th as opposed to 1/72nd scale. I think I'm going to paint them. You know, I've got this this half track that one of you guys thought was their least favorite German vehicle, which is fine. This thing with an anti-aircraft gun. It's small. I'm going to practice doing camouflage on this thing, and it'll probably end up looking just fine. But I'm like, this is what I spray primed with. This was my test spray paint. You know, and I think I'm going to use it. I mean, yes, it's very small, but look, it's like an objective. You got to take out that thing. It's got a quad machine gun back here, quad cannon. You know, I can tell you from experience gaming with Frank Chadwick that scale doesn't matter for his games. Hell, we played volley and bayonet with 54mm miniature without proper base and volley and bayonet. Oh, I don't know. Paint them just for fun, maybe? Yeah. I think they'll look good. I think they'll be just fine. Here's the reality. If it doesn't bother me, it doesn't really matter who it bothers. I think I'm going to do it. Because I got them. There's a guy selling them on eBay for like $30 each. I'm like, yeah, just because you're selling them for that doesn't mean anybody's buying. I don't want to sell them. I don't want to go to the post office for anybody. I'd rather donate a kidney than go to the post office. Yeah, you know what I mean. I have to come up with a senior quote. Okay. Are you old? Might quote Napoleon. Well, I wouldn't even know it was a Napoleonic quote. I'm not much of a nappy guy. I mean, I know more than than people on the street, but that's not saying anything, as you know. But I don't mind playing Napoleonics. Just got back from the gym. What's going on? I did too. Well, not just now, but before I went on. Yep. Fridays aren't real popular. I think it's a lot easier to go when you know you don't have to go to work the next day than it is just in the middle of the week when you're trying to cram too many things anyways. One 87th HO scale and 20 mil. No, 20 mil is technically, I think, well, 20 mil isn't a scale for starters. It's just the size of the figures, but it scales better with 176th and 172nd, so it is significantly smaller. I think we'll end up painting them. It'll be fine. 3 days a week at the gym, 2 hours. Well, there's not enough time in my day for that. You're a lot younger than I am, probably. Not that I mind being there 2 hours. It just takes up too much of my day. And I can't go in the mornings. Just not enough time. I already wake up at 5 a.m. What do you wake up even earlier? "45 years old." Yep, I got almost 7 years on you. Yeah, but I don't have necessarily a schedule that I got to do this and I got to do it in this order. And you know, you get to. I like being a little bit more flexible. You show up and somebody's on the thing you want to be on, and just do them in a different order that time. It's not that big of a deal. I don't log stuff. That just ends up becoming a lot of work. You end up creating a day job for yourself. I remember a long time ago when we used to go to this other place that then we ended up not going to for a while. You have this sheet. You have to keep your sheet in a certain place and log. Fuck it. Life's too short. I know about where it was. You know, do 3 sets of 10. Challenge yourself to where you almost can't do it. Do 3 sets of 10. Move on to the next thing. That's it. Hell, just the fact that you're going, you're doing better than most people to begin with. So, but usually what happens is if the daughter wants to go or if the wife wants to go, we'll go out there. It's just kind of a little bit of a drive. It's actually kind of in the country, it's a distance issue, not necessarily a time issue to go out there. So I don't generally like to go by myself because it costs just as much gas to have multiple people go as opposed to one. So I made the exception today and said, you know, I'm going to go before it's early enough. I'm going to go by myself. Okay. How does this one compare to this one? They don't have to be perfect. They just need to be equivalent. You're not a computer person, love the outdoors and working out. Well, yeah, I'm at work. I'm outside at work a lot more than I'd like to be, and I work somewhere hot. So, yeah, when I get home, I want to be in the air conditioning. I want to be in the air conditioning. I would never go to one of those. What are those things called? What's that new fad that everybody's into? CrossFit or whatever. And it's like working out in a hot garage. Like, yeah, f that. I'm paying for this. You're gonna have it air conditioned. It's hot enough in there. It was actually hot today. It was like 75 or something like that inside. I'm like, yeah, I gotta work in a hot environment anyways. I certainly don't need to pay for it, too. It's not that's not gonna make enough of a difference for for me. It's not like, oh well, I didn't burn enough because it wasn't this. Nah, I'm hot enough as it is all throughout the day. I don't need to pay for that. You love the where do you live again? Love the outdoors. I love the outdoors when it's cold. I don't like the outdoors most of the time here in Florida. Unless I'm wet at the beach or something. CrossFit sucks. Yeah, I'm not paying for being a fucking garage. I mean, if you want to, that's fine, but it's no. Maybe if they paid you. Northern Michigan. Oh yeah, no wonder you like being outdoors. I would too. Outdoors here sucks. No breeze and bugs galore. And actually today is what's the temperature today? Rain coming. Yeah, it's like in the freaking 80s and like 107 humidity. It's like when it rains, it's going to be drier. It is so freaking humid out today. It was supposed to be cold today, and the cold got moved back a day. Tomorrow's going to be the rainy day, and Sunday it'll be cold. In the coldish. Not, and I mean cold. I don't mean like I'm going to be cold. I'm just saying it's cold weather. In the 30s, supposedly. I'd take that every day. I wish it was 30 every day, and not have to shovel anything. And when it's 30 degrees here, it's bright blue skies. It's just beautiful. These molds are so old, there's almost like cracking. Actually, it might end up being, what do you call that stuff where you decay? Might be decay. This is what we have. This is what we're working with. So we will make the best of it. But these are definitely much poorer miniatures than the SHQ ones. The SHQ ones are a lot nicer. But to be honest with you, I prefer if they were in plastic. It's just a lot easier to work with. All right, I'm going to call this one done, at least on the green. All right, let's do this one, the Commander. This is the four with the 4 barrels. Good season for fishing here. I found my lake rod a couple months ago in great condition. Thinking of taking out fishing this summer. 35 degrees is the high tomorrow. Last week was 7 for a high. Well, was it blue skies? I gotta have the blue skies, man. I'm used to that. This is the Sunshine State, so. I don't know shit about fishing, but I do enjoy it as long as it's salt water. I'm not much of a freshwater, but you got to remember the freshwater here is terrible. Sucks. It's all like brown and you can't see anything. And saltwater, you're out in saltwater. I mean, it's great. It's a win. It's a win. So what else is new? What else did I find out recently? What else did I learn recently? Blue skies at night. We have no light pollution. That's cool. Only time I tried to go deep sea fishing, the weather was bad and we camped out on the beach, and I woke up 2 days later on my grandparents' couch with severe chicken pox as a 4-year-old. I don't think you need to go past and not see land. Not that I'm necessarily afraid of it. I mean, I wouldn't want to be in a North Atlantic gale or something like that, but I don't get seasick. My people came over on a boat. You know what I can't do? I can't not drink and fish. I don't have to have a lot, but just, should I make it on Monday? Any thoughts? Pensu's coming. What do you want to do? You want to work on the rules? Give me the weekend to think about what we want to add in next, if that's the case. Although heffalumps worked really well. That made it very interesting the other day. And if you guys want to play the standard game, that's fine. I'll just watch. Doesn't matter to me. I'm a live and let live kind of person, People can do whatever they want as long as you're not making me do something. Just like I don't need to make anybody do things, It's not that important. I want to play in the games I want to play in some of those games you're running at the show, even though nobody can find out where the schedule is for the show because it's nice and hidden. They're really dropping the ball on that one. But I want to wait a little bit to see who's playing in the game with you. That is the one thing that I'll say about, when you play DBA, that no matter who you're playing with, you probably don't mind playing with them. But you play a game that's like for 4 hours, you could get stuck with the wrong people. The people that aren't having any fun. Even when they're winning, they're not having any fun. They're like, I don't want any part of that. I have a lot of fun. That's like when we were playing that game. We were playing Edgar's game, and Mitch and I were on one side, and Joel and what's his face were on the other side, and we were having too much fun. John Merck, he didn't know what we were doing. I said, I'm just having fun. I have fun when I play. Funny stuff happens. I get excitable when I play. I got a couple people that want me to play a game at a show, and I can't. I'm running the whole schedule, or I'm committed to play DBA. I'm like, I don't know, I can't go and play another game, so I'm stuck playing it all the time. I want to be able to, like, film a video, or, look at the vendors, or, do something that, that's a little bit off the cuff, so to speak, and a little bit more free. Historicon, I would have loved to have played the demo for that Sergeant's game. I've been looking at that for years. I don't know that I'm going to get into it, but you know, maybe they'll have somebody there that does 3D printing. I don't want to do my own 3D printing. I want to contract that out, but it's got to be somebody that can do high quality stuff. I don't want no grainy shit. Face of Battles, 318 pages. It's awesome. It's thick as shit. Here's the difference, okay? It is the opposite of DBA. So in DBA, or a game like that, it's abstract in that, you roll off to each other and you have to kind of imagine in your head what happened, right? A couple units go into contact with each other, and this one outscores this one, and this one recoils. So you have to picture, well, what exactly happened? In Face of Battle, you know exactly what happens. So, is it a very detailed game? Yes. Is it difficult to understand? No. Because the concept is, it's one guy's action. What can he do? Well, it's really easy for you to figure out what a guy does for an action. You can either move a certain distance, or you can move a larger or a smaller distance and then shoot, obviously with issues that come along with that, with accuracy or things like that. Or you can climb up a ladder, or you can try to unjam a gun, or reload a magazine, or put another round. There's all those things that you already know that they involve an action. It's not counterintuitive. It makes sense. The problem is it's kind of like, think of it like the game is a play, and there's a guy with a spotlight up there, and nobody says anything or nobody does anything unless the spotlight is on him. So you pull a token out, and it's so-and-so's guy. It's this guy. You look whose name it is, and it's Worth. Okay, what's Worth going to do? So you decide what your action's going to be, and then when you're done, he's done. But it's like a spotlight is on Worth. It doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. What is Worth doing right now? And then when you decide to do what that is, then the spotlight's not on him. It's on the next person you pull out. So it is a slow motion game. But that's why you don't really need to be running more than like 4 to 5 guys each person. So I'm going to run it like a role-playing game, where everybody is on one side, supposedly, and you have objectives of what you're trying to do. Because it's, somewhere like 20 or 30 seconds each turn. And each turn, technically each person gets 2 actions, unless they get killed before they take their second one, or before they take their first one, depending on how it lands. But you don't know what order it's going to go in. So there's a lot of things you can't control. So yes, it's 318 pages because everything is covered in there, including, all the stats of the vehicles and, that kind of stuff. But it's not difficult to understand. It's not abstract like, oh, that doesn't make sense, So, and that's kind of the background that I come from, is that it's a percentile system and it's not abstract. So you could just say like, oh, you got a bolt action rifle, I'm going to shoot at that guy. I'm just going to roll. And if you roll like an 80, you're not going to hit the guy, right? And if you roll over 95, you may have a jam situation. So you can approximate kind of what it is on a die roll, So I'm looking forward to getting back into that stuff that makes sense. And it's all really simple. Like once you figure out, like, let's say you have a tank, right? Once you figure out how a tank fires, it's pretty obvious. What do you got to do next? Well, you got to roll to see where it hits the enemy tank. Okay, and then you check penetration. That's pretty obvious. And then you check what effects it has. That's pretty obvious. I mean, none of that doesn't make any sense. Now, does it move slow? Sure. But, I'm not really in a hurry. That's why I'm perfectly fine just soloing it or run it here, leave it set up. It takes a couple of weeks to get through a scenario, whatever. It doesn't matter. A couple of weeks meaning of, multiple sessions, 3 or 4 sessions, But the purpose of that is it has one hell of a narrative. You don't have to invent what happened. It's a story is unfolding before your very eyes. And it could be crazy. It could involve 2 vehicles crashing into each other and you didn't want to. Or, you tried to run over one guy and you got stuck in a mud pit. Or, things could, it's like a movie. And that's what I want out of my World War II experience. You got Noble Knight's last copy. Okay. Well, that's only Germans and Russians. It was like, what, $25? Or maybe it was $50. It's worth it. It is. Where is it? Is this up here? I covered it in plastic. Of course, this is the Commonwealth and the U.S. expansion. This is it right here. And I already created, like 2 years ago, a Facebook page for it. Because when I start playing it, I'm going to be putting things on there, and then we can get that ball rolling. Yeah. This is it right here. And I covered it all in plastic sheeting, so it's extra thick. But it's going to be something when I get through it again, I'm going to create like a little cheat sheet, because it's finding the stuff in here isn't difficult, but you do have to flip a lot of pages, and it's all in there. So, anyhow, it's the closest thing to me creating my own rules, which is what I was doing at one point, and I just don't have the time for it. Now, I'm perfectly fine if I see something in there, it doesn't seem right, or if there's things that are wrong, like that tank commander isn't supposed to be the one that's supposed to be doing that. Like, for instance, in a 2-man turret, right? T-34 2-man turret. You've got a gunner and a loader. The gunner is the commander. So generally that's the arrangement. A 2-man turret, the guy who has the responsibility of the tank commander is usually the gunner. Except on a Crusader 3. So the Crusader series is actually really interesting. The Crusader 1 actually had like a machine gun turret up front that it caused all kinds of problems, so they deleted that. The Crusader 2 is the same as that, except they got rid of that machine gun turret up front. And the Crusader 3 doesn't even have a hull machine gun. It's only a 3-man tank. You have a driver, and then you have a gunner, and then you have the commander. So the commander is the loader of the 6-pounder in that. So the rules you're describing are called Tractics, written by Gary Gygax. Great for vehicles with lots of details. Infantry rules, not so much. Yeah, I feel like I just bought ASL. No, first of all, ASL is bell curve. ASL, I used to play ASL and probably played 80, 90 games of it. I don't think I'd play it again because I don't like the turn structure very much. Yeah, I never played Tractics, John Peter, but I don't like games that don't have the infantry has any detail, because then you just drive around a bunch of tanks and everything's important. And here's the reality: if you're playing an actual scale, right? Once the infantry get within 10 inches of this can't fire its main armament at them. So you can swarm on that. Now, on a 4x8 foot table, Mitch has a 4x8 foot table. The scale of the game is an inch equals 2 meters. So the way I play it is, I said, okay, well, that's close enough. I compress it a tiny bit, and I make 1 meter is a centimeter. And it's perfect. It's almost actual scale to all the miniatures. And a 4 foot by 8 foot table, the board's only 120 meters across. So it's all kind of point blank range anyways. So that's what it kind of simulates, you know? I love it. I love it. But I'm sure I'm going to find errors in the rules with equipment or something like that. Well, I'll just change it. I'm not going to run it. I'm not running into con, you know. So the big thing that's important in a rule set is do you enjoy the decisions you get to make, and does it focus on the decisions you want to make in the game, and for any game system, and is it unpredictable enough? Because I don't like games that are very predictable, and that's the problem with ASL. You know, when it's your bound, you're going to do the prep fire phase. There's nothing anybody can do about it. You're going to do your damn prep fire phase. And then when you're done with that, you get to do movement, and the other guy doesn't get to do jack shit other than interrupt you for opportunity fire stuff. That's it. And it's just way too structured. I think that the ASL ripoff, and I call it a ripoff because if it isn't, it's pretty obvious that it is heavily influenced. And that's lock and load tactical, is better than ASL from a structure because, you know, you have a rally phase, but then you have movement and firing combined in once, and you basically alternate bounds. So you can pass if you don't want to go next, but then your opponent gets to go. But then if he passes also, then the turn ends. So maybe you don't want to do that. But I think it's a little bit more intuitive. Now in this game, you're kind of, even though you're moving one figure at a time, your turn doesn't last very long. You know, it's like you do one action, okay, then it goes on to somebody else. Well, you don't want to get up and pee because you could go next. One of your guys could get pulled. Because you can actually play it where you have both sides flip something over to get to go. I like to do it one person at a time because that way it's just a lot easier. Because then if both people, like let's say you've got two guys, okay, and they both flip and they're on opposite sides and they both have to act. Now you're like, well, you go first, no, you go first. You know, it's just easier to let one person go at a time. And that way everybody's paying attention to what's happening. So like I said, it's not for everybody, but it is for me until something better comes along. And I don't see the trend going in that direction. The trend seems to be for, hey, let's play these really fast play games. And I'm not putting this much effort in making sure to get the right T-34 model when it ends up being like all medium tanks are the same. Like, it's just not for me, you know? I'm not going to play something like that and be motivated to paint this kind of details to them. But, you know, you can do whatever you want. It's just, I'm just telling you from my experience, that's not what gets my juices going. So I don't know if that's helpful at all, but that's what it is. The more I think about miniatures, the more I kind of just want to not get miniatures. Well, you got to enjoy painting them, you know. I haven't played, what do you call it? Gates of Hell Ostfront in a couple weeks because I'm enjoying doing this, hanging out with you guys, conversating, and having something to show for it at the end of the day. You know, the games are fine, and they're inspiring sometimes to, you know, do work of the period, but you don't have anything to show for them at the end of the day. Anybody can do that, you know. Anybody can play a video game. Where are we at on this? 3. We still got one more to go. I want to paint some numbers, damn it. I want to paint some numbers. But it's all very personal, and I'm fine if other people don't want to do something different. I'm very particular about the scales I do things in. There's just some scales I don't want to do. You know, I'm never going to do 28 millimeter stuff. It's too expensive. It used to be there wasn't any variety. I've never played Warhammer, so I've never fallen in love with that scale. Now, there's some cool stuff like those Rubicon models that they make the tanks of. Those are pretty cool. They give you all kinds of versions, but you know, these things are expensive enough. I don't need them, you know. And honestly, what drew me to do this kind of gaming was the figures, the individual men. It wasn't the vehicles; it was the individual men, and the style that some of the sculpting is done in. That's actually what drew me into it. Was the infantry. As I got all these guys, none of the figures were repeated. They could be. I mean, that's a little extreme. I could have like 2 of each guy and then be fine, you know. But I got all these figures and none of them were repeated. So that's pretty cool. They're all individual and but my main motivation to do this is just to do it. You know, there's that Portuguese guy that has that thing on the YouTube and he's got these huge armies for rapid fire. And I came across him maybe not a year ago, maybe 8 months ago, and I'm like, son of a bitch, I need to paint my 20s. I'm sitting here painting 2 15mm DBA armies a year, playing this game that's great as a game, don't get me wrong, but it's extremely vague, and you know, it's like going and eating a meal that's extremely satisfying, but it lacks taste. It's bland. And I'm like, if I don't do this now, I haven't touched this stuff in 20 years. If I don't do this now, when the hell am I going to do it? So there you have it. That's how we got into this thing again. And I just can't do 2 things at once. I can't say like, okay, I'm going to do 2400 scale naval, and I'm going to do DBA, and I'm going to do this. Because what'll happen is I won't produce enough of this to stay engaged in it. You know, I'm never going to paint enough of this stuff to make a difference. Because I'm not going to be just like, I got a lot of things to do. Let me just paint them sloppily and dip them and be done with them. No, then I'm going to not be happy with how they turn out. And lose interest in the hobby. But yeah, the more you think about miniatures, the less you want to do them. The more I think about rules, the less I want to learn new rules. I just, it's not that I don't want to play by the rules. It's just that that's just a means to an end. First thing, I want to paint this stuff because it's cool. Because it's cool to paint them. Second of all, let's see them in action. Or at least have a chance of seeing them in action and really interesting things and funny. And, you know, obviously we're talking about black humor. Funny things happen. Because you're playing some kind of a skirmish game where you're rolling to see where grenades land. It's great when it doesn't land where you want it to. You know? It's great. That's when the hilarity ensues. I've seen grenades land somewhere that you couldn't aim for. Right? Like you can't see that spot, so you can't throw the grenade. Well, it ends up bouncing in there. You know, and it might be friendly fire. Well, shit happens. That's why I like the Eastern Front. Who feels bad if Nazis and communists are dying? I know not every soldier thought there is, but it makes you feel a little bit better about it. And they're not real people, but if you ever played a game against me, I like to laugh. I like funny things to happen when you least expect them. So it keeps the game fresh. It doesn't matter whether you're playing ASL or something else. There's one channel I subscribe to just today. He posted a video of and I need to go check it out, but I honestly forget. But he does. He's an ASL player amongst other things, and he did a video of one of the starter sets. And one of the things that really annoyed me when I play in ASL is they always would say, "Oh, use this map, but only use from this hex row to this one." I'm like, "Well, I got to block part of the screen because I can see it there, but I can't use it." And he'd masked it off with tape or something like that. I don't know exactly how he did it, but thought that was pretty cool. But it was a really small scenario. It was so small, it was like 3 squads of Brits with some support weapons. You know, the Brits are a squad is 1 counter. So the Brits had like, I don't know, 8 or 9 counters maybe total between the leader and the support weapons. And the Germans had 3 Tiger 1s. And it was like a scenario on, it was like a counterattack at, of Market Garden or something like that. So I like small little quaint things that you can kind of focus. That's one thing I always liked about DBA is it's not a lot of troops. So they're right here, so you could see everything that's going on. You're not like, oh, I didn't notice. You know, I'm all the way on the other side of the board. No, it's like a feast for your eyes, and it's right here. So I got to check out that video because it looked like it could be pretty cool. But I still remember how to play ASL. You know, and I don't think the rules, I don't think ASL is very difficult. The biggest gripe about ASL is that it's the turn structure is very wooden, and I don't like 2d6. I don't like the bell curve. I don't like the battle tech. I don't like rolling 2d6 because it's not proportional. You know, it's you get sevens more common, and then 8s and 9s, and you know, so you can't. A -1 for something makes a big difference depending on what the other numbers are added onto it. A -1 when you're a 9 is not the same as a -1 when you're a 3. You know. Okay, this one's done. How am I in liquid here? Is it time for refill? Yeah, I think we're going to go to straight water. And the 2d6 and ironclads didn't bother me. I like that a lot, actually. I like that we each only had 1 ship. I like that. Honest question, everyone. What do you do if you no longer have the enjoyment of painting miniatures and can't seem to get it no matter what you try? Should I just give up that aspect of the hobby and stick to just model building and vignettes? Well, that's how I feel about model building and vignettes. I have no interest in it. You just move to something else. Do whatever you want to do, you know? There was a time about 2010, 2011 that I'm like, I was talking to my buddy Jeff at the time, and I'm like, I don't think I want to paint miniatures anymore because it's just too time consuming. And I came around because what happened is it's a big stress reliever. You know, it's a big stress reliever doing this because everything that happens here goes well. Or if it starts going south, I can fix it. In the real world, that's not the case. You got all kinds of problems. So this is therapy, you know. And with you guys on here, it's group therapy. I'll be right back. game with honestly it's too much hassle to have to buy, build, and paint managers for both sides. Why do that when I just get a hex counter game? Just stick it out. Yeah, painting isn't fun. The hex and counter, print and play, print bases, laminate them. Well, if you don't enjoy the painting aspect of it, then yeah, don't do it. I do. It's therapeutic. Took me a couple of years to realize that. And when I play games, like I enjoy playing video games, okay? But I come back out after I'm done playing them, like I'm mad. Like sometimes you like these, this again, Like how many more first-person shooters am I gonna play? I don't really want to play any. I'm tired of saving the world from demons and Nazis. They keep bringing them back. Oh, you're on your own. I've already done 12 tours. I'm not doing another one. Okay, so yeah, so that's where I'm at with my DBA armies. I'm like, okay, I've spent thousands of hours painting them. And that's what was really keeping me going, continuing playing the game, because I didn't want to spend thousands of hours painting them and then not get to use them. But now I'm like, they've been keeping me from doing this, and I've been wanting to do this at least a couple of years, and I haven't allowed myself to do it because I have had like schedules of other things to do. And I'm like, no, this is what I want to do. I'm fine not using them again. I mean, that's kind of an extreme example, saying I'm not going to use them again. But I'd rather not use them again than them keeping me from doing something that I want to do. Because I'll I'll read something. I'll read something about World War II, and I'm like, I want to paint one of those. So go and paint it, and then go back on to something. It's not like I got to get these done by a show or anything. So I got deadlines at work, and I don't want deadlines in my hobby. And work has just become a real pain in the ass the last 3 years. That it's like, I don't need other pain in the ass things that don't pay. So, and it's got nothing to do with the people that I play with. People I play with are cool. Even Joe. It's got nothing to do with that. It's just that, I don't want problems. I know the last show I went to, it was like a week to go, and I still had to finish the freaking Hun army, which I didn't want to paint. I wanted to paint World War II tanks, but I couldn't because I didn't have time to do it. And I still had to do awards and score sheets and all that stuff. And somebody walked away. Some fucker walked away with one of the awards because I'd made one for one of the events. And on the last day, it was gone. It wasn't there. So why would you steal an award that's basically worth nothing because it's just a printed photograph? Doesn't mean anything if you're not in the event. For an event you weren't even in. Well, end of the day, it only gets you so far. Problem of having to do both sides conflicts makes it hard for me. That's what I'm struggling with. I like to paint, but the motivation just isn't there anymore. Not sure I can get it back for miniatures anyways, even though I want to paint stuff, and it's just not happening, Well, look at it this way. Are you still motivated to paint models? Think of these as models. And then that at least there's an opportunity somewhere down the road to play it. There's a guy on there. On Facebook. I mean, he's in other places. He's on YouTube and stuff like that. His name's Yorkshire Gamer. And he started building 1/700 scale models. And he's got to supposedly game. Now, 1/700 is pretty freaking big. You got a battleship that's about this long. right? Waterline models. And he's had some destroyers or whatever. He went and built a hood. He just finished a Bismarck. I don't know that you're going to get a chance to game with something that the freaking battleship is this big. You'd have to play like on a tennis court or like be really out of scale. But the reality is he's building something that's a model that there's a chance. So you're saying there's a chance. Yes, I'm saying there's a chance to do something with it other than just have it sit in a shelf. Because when it sits in a shelf, who gets to check it out? You. That's it, you know? So, but, you know, do whatever you want to do with it, you know? But I'd rather just build and paint a model kit over painting miniatures and never using them. It would be the best wargame miniatures on the market, tactically and complexity of rules. I have one 700 scale hood and 700 scale Sean horse. I had that Sean horse. Mine was it Tamiya that made it? It was a nice model. I wouldn't do that scale because there's not the variety of ships I would want there to be. That's the only reason. Well, that and space. Sean Horse is a much better looking ship than Bismarck, in my opinion. Sean Horse is a damn good looking ship. And has more armor than Bismarck in some places. Nobody's supposed to know that. I like Sean Horse. Actually, don't have the Scharnhorst I have. Mine is the Flyhawk Premium kit that came out 2 to 3 years ago. Yeah, mine was Tamiya, and I built it. Was I still living at home at the time? I built it close to 1990. About then. You know, it's a piece of cake to put together. It's nothing to it. It'd be even more of a piece of cake now. But we're not getting into that because I can't be into everything. Sean Horse, your favorite ship from World War II? Well, it's not a bad choice. I don't know that I have a favorite one. There's so many that I really like. It'd be really hard to pick one. It would be really, really hard to pick one. It'd be really hard to pick one destroyer. But it'd be British, that's for sure. Those British destroyers have some freaking storied histories. Good night, Joe. See you later this weekend. What were you working on anyways? Joe put on a really cool Ironclad game, which when you say Ironclads, people automatically think, oh, it's American Civil War. Not this time, pal. It was War of the Pacific. He did a scenario, the Battle off Iquique. It was Peruvians versus Chileans. And we did that last Monday night. I'm glad he put it on. I had a great time. Can't wait to do it again. And you play it on a hex map. So it was with miniatures. And it was a big piece of felt. It was 4 by 8 foot piece of felt. But it was all had hexes on it. And the hexes were about 1.5 inches. Maybe 2-inch hexes. And what was neat about it is, it felt like we were playing an actual scale. Because you know, the ships were about this big, and they'd fire 30 or something inches away. So you could like move and stuff. It wasn't like it was super condensed. It wasn't like when we used to play Harpoon. You know, I got a friend of mine that was really into Harpoon. Your ship would be 1/2400 scale, and you moved like 1/3 of an inch. And you know, 1 inch was like a nautical mile or some shit like that. It was like, that doesn't really work in scale of it. This one was like almost like in scale of the actual ships. That was pretty neat. Seemed like everybody had a good time. Had to plot your turn and advance and then move simultaneously. Are there many differences between 1/72nd or 1/56th in vehicles? Because it's barely appreciated. Oh yeah, 156 is massive. Yeah, 156 is like for 28 millimeter. So this vehicle would be significantly bigger. There's not much of a difference between 72nd and 76th, although there can be. It depends on the vehicle. The larger the vehicle, the more noticeable it is. And 156 scale is a relatively new scale. It didn't exist 20 years ago. Talking about chips, my dad was always interested in the Spanish-American War because he was born in Cuba, and as a kid, I guess he remembered those battle things there. I was never interested in it because it's a very one-sided affair. So if something's really one-sided, I'm not interested in it. It just ends up being something that's like, well, I'm not a fan of things that are already predisposed to go one way or the other. But my dad was not he was a university professor. He was not a war gamer, but he did love history as a hobby. I was told I was not allowed to do history as a profession if I wanted to eat. He's right. I don't like to write, so that would not have been a good combination. I hate writing things. I like taking notes. I like learning stuff, but I don't like formally writing stuff just for the sake of writing something. I'm not a busy work. I'm not a fan of busy work. I like to do stuff because there's a purpose to it, not just because you got to keep people busy. And who knows what kind of history they're teaching in college now? Revisionist history? Who knows? I'm glad, I'm glad I'm out of that stage. Tony, a little in Spanish, which unfortunately I did not have time to get a hold of English in high school. I took Remarca, but having to study many laws, I could not continue studying. Thank you. This last question about scales was not clear to me. Sorry for inconvenience. Es sobre si hay mucha diferencia entre escala. Well, yeah, I don't have anything in 156th to show you, but you know, it's real simple. An inch is 56 inches, or it's 72 inches, so it's compressed by a certain amount. Do I have a 1/72 scale and a 1/76 scale thing here? I do. Let's see. I don't have any 28 millimeter stuff at all, so I can't show you. What do I have in both? Okay, a Panzer III. I have a Panzer III that's in 1/76 and one that's in 1/72. I'm sorry, a Panzer IV. We'll do this. This is a 1/76 scale Panzer IV. And this is a 1/72 scale. This is the same hull. They both should be the same size. And they're not. This one is just a little bit longer. It's a little bit bigger. It's a little bit wider. 156 would be like out to here. It would be, I don't know, maybe a third bigger. You know? Sí, como la tercera parte más grande. 1.56. So, en las figuras es hasta más dramático. Porque las de 28 milímetros son bien exageradas. So, these two are close enough that I don't have a problem using it, especially because these are two things I already had. If I'm going to go out and buy things, I want to buy 1/72 scale. Okay? But to use things I already had, I don't care. What am I going to do? Render it not useful? You know? So, 1/87th is a lot more pronounced. Let's see if I can find that Sherman. I have a 1/87 scale Sherman here that is basically useless compared to the other ones. Now, I may have moved it. Oh, I did, of course. I'll find it. And I'll show you what the difference is. That one's really appreciable difference. Because it's basically a Roco Sherman. Here it is. I knew it wasn't difficult to find. This is 1/87th HO scale Sherman. And here is a 1/72 scale Sherman. Actually, I got even a better one for you. Where's the one with the sandbags? Got it. Okay. This is a 1/87th scale Sherman. This is a 1/76th scale Sherman. And this is a 1/72nd scale Sherman. I never point this in the right direction. I need to move it the opposite of what's logically. So those are dramatically different. This is like useless. This is like almost like a go-kart for the guys. So this is 1/87th. No, not on the screen. 1/87th. Okay, this is 1/76th, and this one's 1/72. And it's all the same vehicle. The hull should be the same size. But there's variations in the manufacturer. Like for instance, this may be an accurate 1/72nd, and when they made this, they actually might have made this a little bit bigger. So they're just wargaming models. So, but this thing's useless. You know, this is actually in the same scale as this. Estos dos son la misma escala. These are the same scale of each other. So you can tell how big this real one should be. It should be like freaking massive. It's called a land battleship. You know? This is the hull for the T-34. This is for a T-34-85. But it's the same size hull as this one. But this is 1/72nd. Here, 1/76th, 1/72nd. So they vary a little bit. But I got tons of these. What am I going to do? Not use them? At some point, you have to unclench a little bit. All right, this is Sherman's Ahoy. So hopefully that makes sense. So if I'm going to go buy something, I want to buy a 72nd scale one because it scales better with the figures. It just looks better, in my opinion. There's more variety. So Sherman's Ahoy, that's right. Hey, Rick. Happy Friday. Well, you work from home. Every day's a Friday. You're not going to have one of your late night meals where you get to have a bad trip on the dreams you have, right? Because you got a full belly at like 3 in the morning. I used to be a night owl. Now I'm a morning. What's the opposite of a night owl? A morning coot? You morning coot? Something like that. I'm a morning person. But there will be no painting tomorrow morning because I've got to go take the car to an oil change. It's that time. So I used to be a person to stay up till like 2 or 3 in the morning in my 20s. At some point you're like, you know, it isn't worth it. It isn't worth it to stay up late, but tomorrow morning I got to be at the place at like 7:30 in the morning. So there's no point in getting everybody fired up and only being on here an hour, you know? Nope, I better hold off on the late night Taco Bell tonight. Yeah, need to make sure you wear the brown pants for that. We're going to finish painting this color on the T-34s, and then we're going to call it. Because we got some good painting in there today. And I know it's a lot more efficient doing like multiple vehicles at a time. I'm really a paint one thing as you go kind of person. I feel like I don't give these things sometimes the attention they deserve. I'm doing them multiple at a time, but maybe that's just perception. Oh, way too bright. It's okay on those handles. See, these are actually little handles that the tank riders can grab. And they normally would be, you know, I guess photo etch would probably be the thing to make them out of, but they're not photo etched. They're cast right onto the turret. Hey, these tank minis are 40 years old probably. And they work just fine as far as I'm concerned. Now there's two of these tanks. It's going to be the ones that don't have the turret open that I'm going to paint. One of the books or something I saw, they were actually a Stalingrad tanks, which kind of surprises me because I didn't think that this model really came out until, you know, maybe late 42, but in mid 42, these guys were out on the way to Stalingrad, and both of them, I think they're both knocked out, have a stripe, a white stripe towards the top of the turret, along with the other markings that they might have on them. They got numbers or whatever, but they've got a white stripe along the side, top of the turret, and they have some air recognition symbols that actually go over the hatches. One of them is a triangle, and then another one is a circle, and I think in white. And I think that that's kind of cool, that just make them a little different. So that's what these two are going to be. And I don't do the commanders in those because, you know, you're not going to get the full effect that it's a circle if one of the hatches is open. You're only going to see like a half moon, and you're going to be wondering, well, what exactly is that on there? So I could do it, but I'd like to make all of these different so that they're not part of a unit just for variety, because there's just not enough variety between, but on the markings of these guys anyways. So the fact that they're pretty much overall all dark green. Now I'll probably do some camouflage ones down the road, but these are all pretty much all dark green from the factory. So I might as well do some kind of customizing on them to make them look like they've got some personality. So, okay, I think we're done with this for the time being, and we're going to go ahead and sign out. But thanks for stopping by as always. And we'll catch you guys later on in the weekend, even though it will not be tomorrow morning. And yeah, more to come. So this is where we're going to put them all up here. And this is where we will pick up. I think at this point, I'm probably going to do them by the each. I'm going to do the two that have the turret symbols first. So these two guys here. We'll check that out. And as always, the lighting here is not great from a camera aspect to really see what's going on. But anyways, thanks for stopping by, folks. We'll catch you on the next one.